get your asses ready and get them to get spanked because tanking is here. Did I say? Is it too much?
It's fine, man. It's never too much, dude.
Nah, it's tanking time. It's fun time. So no analysis, no performance, no data. We're gonna get into a little bit of, let's say,
Does it feel fun to press the buttons?
Yeah, man. I mean, whoever likes and enjoys tanking, I think we have to like realize here that the most important factor of all of them is fun. So this is a TLF, Tier List Fridays based on fun for tanking in Dragonflight.
Of course, and yeah, I think it's good. I mean, we did receive comments of also like, you know, I find dealing damage is fun. It's like, okay, numbers factor slightly into it, but they're not like the major factor, and we have to say fun because people will take this into consideration. Like, oh, is this how the tank meta is gonna be? No, it's no. What we like to do.
Now let's be all vampires and seek out some blood.
Let's
Blood decay.
suck. All right.
Blood decay, baby.
Blood decay. Well, blood decay hasn't received many changes since our last couple of videos that we did, and to cover the specs. So the fun aspect is pretty much the same. Although I do have to mention that
it's more.
It kind of has most, if not all, of the fun little toys that it got over the last couple of expansions.
Yeah. I mean, they definitely make use of like all of the general DK stuff, like, you know, Empowered Room Weapon, Abomination level
like
stuff.
the new stuff.
Like, yeah, it's there, and it just adds to the fun element. Not to mention, you know, Bone Storm, Massive Death Strikes, all of that. I feel Blood Death Knight right now is like giga fun. It's basically you can say that. It's not like the degenerate playstyle you have in Shadowlands. You have the positives from the Shadowlands playstyle if you want to.
Yeah.
But I feel like not S tier in terms of fun, but I would say definitely a strong A tier.
No A tier. Yeah, it's kind of A tier. It's good. It has the good stuff of Blood Decay, and with all the cool new toys, it would be A tier.
Yeah, I mean, as I've said, man, like Empowered Rune Weapon, you know, Soul Reaper and all of that, it gets a lot of nice toys to play with, and it just adds to like and already I would say solid spec to be tanking with in Dragonflight and having fun with. So A tier is definitely worth it for the blood decays. Brewmaster monk.
Get your drink on because brew is most of the same, but with a couple of quirks here and there. It's went through a couple of talent iterations, although Monk is probably still cool if you like to play Brewmaster, if you like that stagger mechanic. It's gonna do most of the same things. However, there are a couple of things that you can do that you couldn't do before. First of all, if you want, you can actually spec deep into a fire-breathing build, which is kind of cool because you spit fire like a maniac. Dude, it's like that one time we ate spicy when we thought we could do spicy, but we actually couldn't do spicy.
Oh yeah, I remember that time. Yeah, it was good times, and the aftermath that was even more painful. But that's not the point. Yeah, that's not the point, Flame. Brewmaster Monk, in all fairness, is like one of the most fun tanks to play, like since forever. Just like the core concept of it. If you, again, as Flame mentioned, if you like the stagger mechanics, but that, you know what, it's not like that like gimpy as let's say Shadowlands or BFA, because now you get so many more defensives to like deal with.
Yeah,
and I think that's part of having fun on playing a tank is like having access to a lot of tools to address options. Addressing different, you know, problems and all of that, and Brewmaster gets access to a lot of stuff. Plus, you know, you can use Bone Dust Brew, diffuse magic and all that. I feel like in terms of self-healing, I know I looked this up as well, and I said self-healing is probably the biggest problem right now. It's not as prevalent. This was always kind of a problem for Brewmasters, but I don't know if I can factor that into fun.
That could be a trade-off because the stagger mechanic is one of the strongest tanking mechanic. You'll never die in one hit.
I am the strongest tank mechanic.
I will wait until Marcelian is gonna be the tank in our Dragonflight.
No, that's not true.
And anyway, but yeah, I think Brewmaster is you know, sustain has always been addressed over the course of an expansion, and that's not necessarily as bad for Brewmaster, because if you have a Brewmaster in your team as a healer, you know that you're gonna have to heal them, because the stagger mechanic works in such a way where you're constantly taking damage. So maybe you are a little bit more reliant on a healer. Maybe that sometimes feels bad, maybe that sometimes feels good. However, slapping things with a lot of kegs is really cool, and exploding them in the face is even cooler.
I get it. Plus, again, you can have Bone Dust Brew and Weapons of Order. You have like Dampen Harm, Healing Elixir, all that. There's so many toys to play with.
Oh yeah.
does it take the cake from blood?
I would put it. I honestly can tell it's a little bit behind blood. I would say because it might still have some tuning.
Issues. This is the thing. It feels much more rewarding because you cannot really fuck with the blood. That nice self healing. You know that's this is so. I think this is the biggest minus, and I feel that is. I love being able to because. For the longest time when I tanked like either Prot Paladin or Guardian Druid, and both of these tanks had their sustain pretty especially Prot with the self heals.
Yeah.
So for me, fun is definitely translatable.
You don't want to be relying on a healer.
Yeah, that's the thing.
Yeah, might be a little bit lower for Brewmaster, but you can at least do things that you couldn't do before, like Blackout Kick. I don't think we've played that since Legion, so it has potential.
Still an 8 tier for sure. All right, friend. Now
talking
for
about
the bare necessities. But Guardian Druid, man, listen.
Right.
We gotta make the disclaimer here. Both of us were pretty excited when we saw like what they're trying to do with Bear, because I think Flame mentioned this and multiple times. He was a big fan of Bear in Legion and the playstyle that was in Legion, and I think like for the last 2 expansions, most of the Bear tanks were kind of I think
it was so
going
bland,
for that.
man.
Yeah,
Bear used to be. It was the first tank I ever played. It was the tank that I wanted to play the most. It's the only tank I have in Classic. Is the first tank I wanted to play in Legion when I went into the expansion. So I love the spec, man, and it's kind of been dumbed down over the years, but what they're doing with it in Dragonflight, it's almost good. It's
almost good.
The problem is
keep
like,
in mind,
numbers don't really matter, but when they're like way skewing into like arcane damage, it kind of feels a little bit silly, and it translates into gameplay when you're like swiping and thrashing like a maniac left and right. But then Moonfire is still your biggest damage. It feels slightly weird.
This is because right now it does have, as I said, the mechanics of thrash and all of that, and
it has all of them, all the cool thrash stuff, man.
Like how it used to be, right? And this is the thing when you see that damage profile again, it could translate into fun, and I feel like for at least in Shadowlands, a lot of folks were playing Bear due to some of its high damage profile, but also the high survivability. The fact that Ursa's Fury got nerfed so bad, it makes a little bit of a problematic situation. Not to mention the fact that overall there's a lot of design flaws with Bear. This not I think Bear is one of those specs, sadly, up there with Red Paladins and what else? Survival, which got no communication, wasn't really iterated too much upon.
It's really weird, and you'll feel this as a Bear when you go into like the Ursine Adept, which is like a core aspect of Bear. It's what makes you cast certain abilities in Bear, like Battle Res or a Curse. It doesn't let you cast all of the utility, while the other specs of Druid can cast all of their utility in the respective forms that they want to be. So this just feels weird. Not to mention that as a tank, you are the spec that wants to never have to leave the tank spec ever, because you're just gonna die if you're not in Bear form. You cannot just swap into cat form and maim or whatever, because you're gonna die.
Yeah, that's the thing. The gameplay wise, although it's very passive at the moment, right? Like you don't really have to do much. Everything is kind of passive. It's still pretty fun. So it's not like D tier. Oh my god, this is so not playable. You're not gonna enjoy it. No, you're gonna enjoy it for sure.
It's a little bit weird because the potential of the design is give it more depth, and it is more fun than it is in Shadowlands, but there are like mechanical tools that you don't really feel until you hit the higher echelon of gameplay of high mythic plus keys, mythic rating. That's where you're gonna feel it. If you ever want to take your Bear to the next level, you're gonna get hit by a big wall, and until they fix that wall, for me, Bear is kind of like CB tierish.
I'm gonna put it into B. I'm not 100% sure because there's still at least one spec that needs to be clarified here. But again, purely fun-wise, it's fun. It's still like that gameplay you enjoy from Bear. Plus,
carries it a little bit.
Yeah, and it has the reminiscence of the Legion Bear, which is it. But that doesn't really it doesn't really translate into what you would expect. But strictly from
balanced druid damage profile.
Yeah. But it's still fun. This is the point, right? If they're gonna like address tuning and fix a couple of talents, this could potentially be.
It's gonna skyrocket above Blood Decay and Brew for me.
That's the
if
truth.
They fix that stuff.
That's the truth of it. Okay, so no performance, just fun. It's a B tier. Okay, now for the sad child who got abandoned in the storm,
had to go get milk, man.
Shut up. Protection Paladin. Now this is the tank I played most on the battle. This and then Guardian Druid. And I will have to say right from the back, there's going to be a lot of criticism here, but just starting it off with a positive, it's still a prot paladin. In terms of like gameplay and the whole fantasy and the whole reason why you enjoy playing a prot paladin, the things are still there. So it's fun from that regard.
And to add on that, they did, because we're gonna go into a little bit of a criticism here. They did add some cool stuff that it makes it real fun. Like they influenced Avenger Shield in a way, and we'll get to that in a second, where you have options to upgrade it to hit more targets or to hit one really strongly. You have upgrades to make it explode and deal AoE damage.
Really cool.
And
visually too.
Yeah, well, it has like one of the coolest tank visuals ever in all of the tanks. Not to mention that I think they also buffed the Avenger Shield gives you an absorb shield when it deals damage thing. I think it's stronger than it is right now in Shadowlands, so that's also kind of cool. So with that aspect, I do see like they have some tools to make the spec cool, and it does feel like a warrior of the light, like a tank. But and I'll let you talk about it as well. I will segue this with it. Avenger Shield no longer generates holy power, which in terms of holy power economy, that's not necessarily too bad. However, there's two main criticisms that I have of it. First of all, is that they're taking something away from you. Like, why? How is anybody supposed to feel when you're just losing something? You don't have it anymore. It's gone.
No trade-off.
And second, for long-time prop paladins, which is probably not gonna apply to like new prop paladins, your mindset works differently when you're pressing an ability and you know that this is gonna generate resource and it's no longer doing that. Your mindset has to like totally swap and readjust, and you're like, oh, I need to do 4 globals instead of 3 now to get what I want. So that's
Also, the one of the things. So, prot paladin is still a very cooldown uptime tracking beast, right? There's a lot of things you have to keep track of to make it work. Some people find that fun. Some people don't. Not gonna get it. I personally don't mind it. I feel it's more engaging to have lots of things going for you. It just probably similar with Bear, it just doesn't translate as you would expect it to be.
Not that bad.
Yeah. There's also the fact that in one of the biggest issues for like survivability being based off of like basically RNG, that's a no-no for tanks, man. Survivability cannot be based on randomness. That's something that's solid, and you need it, and you have to be predictable with it and very straightforward with it, because you cannot play a tank like that, and that's what's the barricade of fate. Or
let's humor the devs, right? You can pick it if you want to. However, you will lose power out of it, because we talk about, I think, what is it, barrier of fate or something that makes,
barricade of fate.
Barricade of fate. You get 10% block chance for 8 seconds or something. That doesn't mean anything, because you take the king of block chance, which is Pro Warrior. The only reason block chance works, or the block works as a mechanic for Pro Warrior, is that you can get it to 100% with shield block. That's the only reason, and anything affecting that is really good. But when you get a percent chance, then you cannot say, okay, I will need a little bit more survivability. What am I getting? Am I gonna take Barricade of Faith, or am I gonna take 10% more damage reduction on Ardent Defender, which is something else entirely as well? Obviously, you're gonna take the flat damage reduction, which is something that Prop Paladin did really well over the years, just having flat damage reduction like you have in Consecration.
Yeah,
that was, you know.
Yeah, I agree. But for this, and that's all like boring choices overall. So it's still fun, but it's very problematic. So we cannot rank it too high. I would say C tier is fair.
C tier, and we're slightly being generous.
Yeah, we're being a bit generous. There's glaring issues with it. Again, at core, Prot Paladin is still the Prot Paladin.
You can still tank it. You'll do the numbers.
Yeah. Okay. Now, the star. Shall we call it the star of the show? Prot Warrior.
Prot Warrior is the reason why I'm so upset with Prot Paladin, because it feels so weird to live in a world where Prot Warrior is so good, yet you have Prot Paladin so bad that does pretty much all of the bad things that you want the tank to do, while Prot Warrior just is amazing. It's not overpowered anymore. I know that if you have been following the course of the beta, you know that everybody was talking like, oh, Pro Warrior's a king. Oh, it's doing massive damage. It has all the defensives. It does all the abilities and all that. It's been tuned down, and it actually feels really cool right now. You have options, and you feel like a tank, man. You have the tools to deal with everything. Not to mention, and this is one thing that I wanted to point out, because we had a conversation on stream about this. You can check us, twitch.tv/MarcelianOnline. We talked about synergy. There's a particular synergy with Pro Warrior. There's a few, but there's a particular synergy with Pro Warrior that has more abilities baked into it than than Prop Paladin and Brewmaster combined or something like that. So you have like Rend, Thunderclap, Blood and Thunder, Demo Shout, Booming Voice, Anger Management, Violent Outburst, Unstoppable Force, and Thunderlord, all abilities that interact with each other. So whenever you press one, it affects all of the other like 7 things, which is not something that any other tank has. And this is what makes it cool when you are right there in the neck of the fight and you're pressing your Thunderclap. It's like, oh, I'm spreading Rend. Oh, I'm also reducing the cooldown of Demo Shout. Oh, I'm getting more Rage. Oh, I'm proccing more Outbursts. This is just crazy fun, and I really hope that they can take at least half of what Pro Warrior does and puts it into something like Prop Paladin.
Now shut up and take my S tier. Let's go. That's it. There's no question.
It's really good.
Yeah, we've been whenever we talked about tanks in Dragonflight, there was a clear start winner out of all of them. That was always Protection Warrior. It just has everything it needs to be fun. If you prefer a specific build or a specific pathing or whatever, it's there and it makes sense. This is like the exclamation, the amount of synergy and completion out of all of the talents is just purely, and it enables a lot of like different gameplay loops that are fun. So it's an S tier, hands down, no questions asked. In our humble opinion, what fun means in tanking.
Oh, of course.
Last on the list, the Vengeance Demon Hunter.
An old passion of yours.
Yes, and it still is. I cannot find too many negatives about it, although I was expecting a lot of negatives.
That's actually a good point. I mean, to be fair, numbers are obviously still changing, but if we're gonna be talking about general design,
just fun,
and what it does, it's, well, obviously if you die in 2 hits, man, that's not fun. It doesn't matter.
No, but that's not the case anymore. Like,
yeah, no longer.
First of all, like you have the demonic build, it's still there. It will remain in Dragonflight. You're gonna have an awesome Fury Brand build. You're gonna have the Hunt, which is, I mean, these are like fun things to have. Not to mention that Darkland Boon has improved a lot. There's like less RNG now.
It's like it's almost no RNG in terms of a tank. So as opposed to what Prop Paladin does, Dark Glare Boon has been changed from what it does now in Shadowlands, where it just refunds cooldown off of Fell Devastation instead of giving you a chance to proc another Fell Devastation, which is very RNG. The cooldown that it reduces, it varies. So that would be the RNG.
Yeah, there's still small RNG.
As a tank, you're like, oh, okay, but I will still have my demonic window quicker.
For sure, it's more reliable. That's the main gist of it. Plus, man, Feed the Demon is just bonkers.
Oh my god, I love that. Finally, I can play it.
Yeah, man.
Without having like sack fracture.
It's really good. So, this is a spec that was always like fun to play, regardless of its issues. Like you can talk about the survivability situation it had in Shadowlands, but it was still fun to play due to its mobility, high-paced, giga AoE damage, and all of that. That is gone now. It just adds on top of it, and I would say it's up there, man. I would say it's. I would put it into S tier pure for fun. This is it.
Go for it. It's looking really good, and it's taking a lot of things that Vengeance could do amazing. It for me personally, fixed a lot of the problems that I had with the spec, because I don't like to feel squishy as a tank.
Yeah, that was the main problem.
I love Feed the Demon ever since Legion. It was, together with Bear, was the tank that I was emotionally invested in Legion, and I'm glad to see it finally looking like a tank. Yeah, man. I mean, that's not to say it can like have like a direct comparison with Prot Warrior. They're totally 2 different beasts. It's better than Blood Decay and Brew in terms of fun.
Definitely better than the rest on the list. So it has to have its worth in the S tier department.
It's been a while since it's been S tier, so yeah, it's kind of cool.
I mean, this is again based on what we think is fun. Okay, so might change if they're gonna do more iterations on the talents and padding and the builds and whatnot. Some of the fun components, yes, can be based on performance and survivability and access to cooldowns and how easy you can, I don't know, dodge stuff or deal with mechanics. There's a lot involved there, but purely from just having fun with your tanks, this is how it's looking.
Yeah.
Okay. This is, and we're pretty happy about it, except for Guardian and Prot Paladins, which I honestly believe this will probably be addressed somewhere in a 10.1 patch, if they will be addressed.
Yeah, we're pretty close. Likely not gonna happen now.
Yeah. But this is it. So, Patreons, big love for your support. Thank you for being there as always, sustaining all of this daily content that we do now. If you're on Patreon, check the link in the description. You can help us like that. And also thank you, dear viewer, for sticking around, leaving a comment. It's very important and we appreciate that. Your thoughts are important. We can chat it over there
in the comment section.
Have a great
weekend.
A head or a leg. Bye!
I've been loving it then, I still love it now. Still, I play WoW. Still, I play WoW. Getting better every day, let me show you how. Cause still, I play WoW. Still, I play WoW. It's getting harder to stay, but at the end of the day, it's a guilty pleasure, so just log in and play. Whether it's classic or retail, I'ma do a /bow. Still, I play WoW.